call Brett Hudson.
Thank you. I rise to speak on the Parental Leave and Employment Protection 6 months paid leave and work contact hours amendment bill. Mr Speaker, this national government supports parents, it supports greater paid parental leave. We do not support this particular bill. I would like to note, I would like to acknowledge Ms Moroney's heartfelt and honest views on the subject, the various instances she's raised this bill or variations of it and had those drawn from the ballot. Particularly also like to note the very constructive working relationship in the Select Committee, the Government Administration Select Committee, even though it was apparent to members on that committee that we would not all be voting on the final bill the same way. We did work very constructively. Submitters were treated with respect and heard and allowed to express their views irrespective of what those views were. But I would note then, the comments that my colleague Mr Mitchell made when he charged that Ms Moroney was perhaps this afternoon undermining the role of males as parents in a comment she made. I won't relitigate that particular statement or offence, but I would note the real-time nature of media, both in this place and with the advent of social media, as during that speech that Mr Mitchell gave, Annette King has been reported in the media already as saying that to Mr Mitchell that the purpose of this is to promote breastfeeding and men can't do that. Well, I acknowledge the veracity of that statement. That's very true. It would be something of a medical miracle if men were suddenly able to breastfeed. But what it raises actually is a deep concerning point. So therefore, Ms King, and I'd also note that she is the Labour health spokesperson, so therefore, presumably from a health perspective, she speaks for Labour on this matter. She thinks this extended parental leave is all about breastfeeding. So what does that mean for women who can't or don't want to breastfeed? One can only take from her own statement in the House that they are somehow less worthy.
Point of order, the Honourable Annette King. No.
Be made by other people.
Order. Look, these are debating points, and the members. It's a debating point. Calling Brett Hudson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Such comments and interjections may be reported by members in the press gallery, as that one was. So Ms King must now live with the comments she made in this House, as she should. So therefore, one can only interpret from her own words, Mr Speaker, that women who can't or don't wish to breastfeed are somehow seen as of less import to the Labour Party and this bill. And I think that's an absolute shame, Mr Speaker, because not all women can, not all women want to breastfeed, certainly for perhaps a 6-month period, and some have other choices that they make that actually are supported by this national government in the flexible way that we have dealt with paid parental leave, but which presumably is of less significance to the opposition. But on the bill in question, as it is presented back to the House, if it were to pass, would extend paid parental leave to 26 weeks, 22 weeks from the 1st of April next year, which was a constructive change that the Select Committee made, because originally it was going to be 22 weeks from the 1st of April of this year, and of course that date has already passed. So that was a good piece of example of the committee working together at least to report a sensible bill back to the House. And then 26 weeks from the 1st of April 2018. It also, I think, is a very worthy part of the bill as it stands, is allowing for work contact hours. And in the respect of the way it's reported back, I think quite a sensible approach. So if you happen to be under paid parental leave for 22 weeks or more, you can have up to 42 hours of paid return to work time, and taking in the extended period you could be on parental leave, much of it unpaid, a total of 156 hours could be taken in paid return to work contact hours, and you would not be deemed, or the person returning to work would not be deemed to have ended their parental leave, paid or otherwise. And in the context of if the House were going to progress a measure such as this, I would make the point that I think that's a very sensible provision to have. But when we come to the government's stance on this particular bill, it is a consistent one. Before I move into what the government has done around paid parental leave, the government's position has been clearly stated all along, and that is that the total cost of 26 weeks paid parental leave is unaffordable under present circumstances. The total cost, not incremental cost. The government has never made a statement that an additional dollar of paid parental leave was unaffordable. In fact, the government has increased paid parental leave from 14 weeks to 18 weeks across two yearly steps. So the government wasn't of the view that a single dollar extra in paid parental leave was unaffordable. It was the government, and remains the government's position, that it is the total cost of the scheme as proposed by Ms Moroney remains unaffordable given current economic conditions. And that is backed up by data the committee requested from the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, and I quote from a very recent document for a specific question that members on the committee gave to MB, and they have made an assessment of the costs of the implementation of this bill through to financial year 2020-21 of $466 million over and above the costs of the plan that this government has already put in place. And that is the point, and reinforces the point the government has maintained all along. It's not that an additional dollar of paid parental leave is unaffordable, it is that the total cost of the plan is unaffordable. And I have to say, Mr Speaker, that I feel that a number of submitters didn't grasp that specific element. They appeared before us and just said, well, you're almost there, you've already spent this amount, what's a little bit more? Which does, quite frankly, miss the point. It's not the little bit more that was the problem. It has always been that the total cost of such a plan would have been, and still in current conditions, remains unaffordable. The government has done what within our fiscal envelope has been possible, and that has been several things. One is, obviously, as I've pointed out, we've increased paid parental leave to 18 weeks from 14. But even more than that, Mr Speaker, because I think it's very relevant and it captures elements that are not considered in Ms Moroney's bill, and that is extending paid parental leave to other caring situations and other work arrangements. So we've extended it to include life carers, whāngai parents, grandparents and permanent guardians. So different parenting arrangements, arrangements that suit families, both parents that presumably may be returning to work, but also broader family structures. We support that, and we have ensured that paid parental leave entitlements can be gained by people in those situations. We've also extended and addressed an issue where Kiwi workers who may have been working for more than one employer, or it might have been casual arrangements, seasonal or contract workers, and who may have had limited or no eligibility in the past, can now be eligible for paid parental leave. So what we have done is ensured that what we've been able to afford to do is now able to benefit a broader range of New Zealand parenting arrangements and workers across the country. But beyond that, we have also understood that not all parenting structures are done in a way that will not all parents choose to want to have an extended period of time off work. Some parents, and I know of several myself, have a choice that they do wish to return to work earlier. So the government increased the parental tax credit, Mr Speaker. It increased, not only increased the tax credit by $70 a week to $220, but extended the eligibility from 8 weeks to 10 weeks. So we're supporting parents who make a different choice. Which again just leads to a government that is supporting a broader range of circumstances across the country. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the work of David Seymour, who came to this House. Mr Seymour came to this House with a proposition that suggested that parents with preterm babies in a particularly challenging circumstance, no one chooses to be preterm, no one chooses to have a preterm child, and so Mr Seymour put up the proposition that perhaps we could extend additional weeks of paid parental leave to parents in those circumstances. So we were happy to support that measure, very sound measure, and have extended 1 week of paid parental leave in addition for...
Order. Now, barracking across the House is unacceptable as a Speaker's ruling 69.2. You can only interject against the person with the call. You cannot do that, and I brought this up earlier on. The Speaker's ruling, I suggest you look at it, 69.2. Now, Ben
Thank you,
Hudson.
Mr Speaker. So 1 week additional paid parental leave for each work the baby is born pre-term. And that's a very sensible measure, and I'd like to congratulate Mr Seymour for bringing that to the House. I'm very proud to sit on a government caucus that supported that measure.
You've got 15 seconds, sorry.
Thank you. So on that note, Mr Speaker, we do oppose this particular bill, but we have done much for parents and will continue to do so. Thank you.